Carmine Appice, one of the most influential and recorded drummers in rock history.
Hey, man. How you doing?
It's been a long time. We used to, back in the old days on my morning show in the 90s, we used to do Carmine Around the World.
Yeah. Where in the world is Carmine?
Carmine Appice used to give us weather from wherever you were on tour, and then we would just go off on tangents. You also gave me Sweet Connie's phone number, and I had her on the show. Is she still with us? I
don't know. I got that from one of my guys in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Right.
That's where she was living, and I still talk to that guy every week.
Well, tell him to tell Connie that I said hello.
Okay.
She was immortalizing Carmine Appice and your brother Vinny Appice. And I always get that confused. I mean, I know you're Carmine Appice, but and you guys did that because you both came up as drummers, and so just to distinguish yourselves a little bit.
Well, we came up different. I used to be Carmine Appice and up until the Rod Stewart days, but I was constantly correcting everybody. They were saying Carmine Appice, Carmine Appice. So when I went with Rod Stewart, he finally said, "You need one way to say your name." Because, we're going to be out there in front of thousands of people every night.
Yeah.
And let's pick one way to say your name, because you're like three different people, with the three different names. So I said, well, most people say Appice. He said, well, why don't we just go with Appice? I said, okay, fine.
And the guys...
And then then there was a Ludwig ad that went and called it, they said, everyone wants a piece of Appice, which made sort of sense,
Yeah. Well, that works. And then the guys in the old neighborhood just go, "Hey, Carmine." That's so there's
yeah. But there's so many guys that still ain't got the Carmine right. They call me Carmen.
Yeah.
When I'm walking on the street or I'm walking at NAMM show, somebody calls me Carmen, I won't answer.
Yeah, right. It's not you. Now you. Speaking of your days with Rod Stewart, man, you co-wrote. Not only were you the drummer, but you co-wrote "Do You Think I'm Sexy" and "Young Turks," two of his biggest hits. And then talk about those days, because Rod was on top of the world when you were with him.
Well, it's funny enough. I have a show called The Rod Experience, and I got myself, Danny Johnson, to play with Rod for 2 years, and Jimmy Cresco to play with Aerosmith, and he also played with Rod for 3 years. And we do like the 1979 Blondes Have More Fun tour show. We do that whole show, and now people are comparing this, and well, there's so many Rod tribute shows out there, so to try and make it different, I just came up with this idea today to call it like a storyteller's thing and actually tell stories, that play 3 or 4 songs, sit down on a bench with the three of us and talk about, the Rod days and what went on. And then play more music and then more story and then, more music and then like a Q&A from the audience.
Yeah.
To really get the audience engaged in what we're doing rather than just going up there and playing the show, to make it a little different,
Yeah.
Because we have a guy that looks like Rod and sings like Rod and we got 3 original members of the Rod Stewart group, plus an all-star band with Kenny Aronson and Alan St. John that played with, everybody between the two of them. But those days were incredible. I mean, come on, you had like 5 nights at the Garden, 6 nights at the Forum in L.A., 5 nights at Wembley. It's just like unbelievable. He was at the top of the game. He was the best frontman in the world by far.
Yeah.
Singer and frontman. He was amazing.
Yeah.
I was privileged and happy to be with him at those times because from 76 to 82, he was on the top of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if after that, he was still big, but he wasn't as big. He never did 6 nights at the Forum again,
Yeah.
or 5 nights at the Garden again, But he's still big in Europe. I mean, in England, he's still at a soccer stadium, but he's doing that crooner stuff now. And I just went to his 70th birthday party, and the theme was a 40s theme. You had to dress up in a 40s tuxedo, and my girlfriend had to dress up in a 40s gown. And he was in a 40s outfit. He even had his hair slicked back like 40s.
He's totally into it. He's going the route, right?
Yeah, he is. And, and he's like the Great Gatsby. I mean, the big giant mansion up in Hollywood Hill and, in the Beverly Hills, up in the mountains there. And, but he deserves it, man. He was the best frontman in the business.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Everybody knows you from your work in the rock world, but you received classical training as well, and you came up like with Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa. Those were your idols, right?
Right, yeah. Because when I came up, there were no real drum idols, except in the jazz world. You know?
Yeah, right. And you were basically one of the forerunners of bringing the drums to the front of the band. I mean, especially in the power rock situation or Vanilla Fudge, everybody was talking about everybody in the band and not only their virtuosity, but this amazing drummer with the double bass. And, a lot of guys cite you as influence, and that includes John Bonham, who talked about you.
Yeah, well, fortunately for us, I mean, we were and fortunately for them, because we were the first band to take them on tour. And not only did we take them on tour, the very first gig they did in Denver in 1968 in December, I think it was December 26, 1968, they opened up for Spirit and Vanilla Fudge. We were top of the bill. It was us and Spirit. The gig was already sold out. We didn't need them on there. We had the same agent as they did, and we were on the same label, and, Peter Graham, the manager, was hooked into our attorney, and my manager had a concert company, and we were all hooked in together, so we put them on that gig, the very first gig, and we actually paid half of their fee, Vanilla Fudge. So had we not done that, they would have never done that gig, and that was the gig that started their career.
Yeah.
So we became friends with them. I mean, John Bonham, it's hard to believe now, but Robert Plant and John Bonham were totally unknown.
Right.
John had loved my drum set. I had the big double bass drum Ludwig's, and he wanted a set like that. I called up Ludwig and told him, I think these guys are going to be big. I mean, that now is like an understatement of 5 decades.
You got something here. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he got the same set I got eventually, a couple of months later, and he was a Ludwig endorser, and I helped him hook up. And he told me at the time I was one of his idols.
Your work with Vanilla Fudge was also one of the first bands to combine soul with psychedelia. Even some of the bands in the Motown roster kind of were influenced a bit by what you guys were doing. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, Rare Earth came out, the only blue-eyed soul psychedelic band on Motown. But then you had all this other stuff. You had the Temptations doing psychedelic and that stuff, And it's funny that we have a new album coming out called Spirit of 67, where we took all these songs from 1967 and we, did a little bit of symphonic rock, psychedelic, funk, soul, all the stuff matched into different trips, different kinds of passages and interludes and stuff like
Excellent.
We do.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good record. I mean, the production on it's fantastic.
Excellent. So that's Spirit of 67. That'll be the new Vanilla Fudge record. Will you guys tour after that?
Yeah, well, we're doing some dates. We're lining up dates now. We got some East Coast dates lined up, and, we're working on other dates throughout the country. The record is actually for pre-order now on Amazon.
Okay.
If you just anybody goes to Amazon, you pre-order it, and it's a really great record. I mean, I've been involved in some really cool stuff in the last few months.
Yeah.
And we're working on a new Cactus record.
Okay.
That'll be out this summer, and I did this Rated X record with Jolene Turner and Tony Franklin on Frontiers. That's been out. And then I did a live record with my brother Vinny, Drum Wars, which is awesome because, really we've been doing Drum Wars all around the world for the last couple of years and having a lot of fun doing it. And then we were thinking about doing a CD, but really the way to do a CD with Drum Wars was the first one had to be a live CD.
Yeah.
Because it was conceived as a live show, and a live show is the way it should have been released. So we did release that, and that's last week we released a video and a new edited version of the video, which is a song from Dio, Stand Up and Shout, in which we both play together, and we take fours at the end, and it's a lot of fun when we, Vinny will start a drum fill and I'll finish it,
Yeah.
It's really cool stuff.
Yeah,
So,
Drum Wars.
So I've been doing some good stuff. Yeah, Drum Wars on Rocker Records by Cleopatra.
Excellent.
Also get that at Amazon, and I think Best Buy has it, and local actual record stores will have it. Also.
Great. You're talking about Cactus and just the history of that band, and what a great band that was. Really soulful and grungy, and And you had Rusty Day. He was nuts, right? I mean, he had a lot of stuff going on in his life.
He was nuts, and he got killed. He got shot in a drug deal in Florida.
Wow.
He lived the life. Everything he sung about, he lived it.
Yeah.
Carrying knives, carrying guns, doing drugs, dealing drugs. He did all that stuff.
How does the band deal with that? Do you just kind of turn a blind eye?
With him? Well, I mean, that's what was going on back then. And there was no. You got to remember, there was no like security on planes. He used to carry knives and guns on the planes. He was a crazy guy. One time we had him and Ginger Baker. He went up to Ginger Baker and said, "Hi, I play with Cactus with Carmine and Tim from Vanilla Fudge." And Ginger looked at him and said, "Why don't you go talk to yourself?" And I thought he was going to kill him.
Oh, man.
And then they ended up in a car together because both of them got left at the train station when we were taking this train in Germany on this tour. We were on tour with Ginger Baker's Air Force and a whole bunch of us. And somehow they got left at the train station. They had a ride in a car together. So we thought the car was going to pull up and there'd be blood all over the back seat,
Right.
But it was okay. They ended up being friends on the ride. He was a very anti-establishment kind of guy. He's rough as hell. I mean, Atlantic Records didn't like him because he wasn't a great singer. He was just it was like Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger's not a great singer,
right,
but he was a great frontman, you know, and a great lyricist. He wrote some great lyrics to the songs.
And Jimmy McCarty, really a vastly underrated guitarist, just a monster.
Oh, my God, a monster guitar player. And, he was, at the time when we got him, he was like the Jeff Beck of America,
Yeah.
He was around, when the Yardbirds were around with Jeff Beck, he was around with Mitch Ryder.
Yeah.
Doing the same stuff,
You recorded with so many people, but one of the things that sticks out is when you played with Pink Floyd, this was back in the Momentary Lapse of Reason album. You played on Dogs of War. What does a Nick Mason say about that when his own band brings in a different drummer to play something? What was the story behind that?
It was weird. I mean, I just got a message from Bob Ezrin on my phone, and it said, "Carmine, give me a call. I'm producing an album that's screaming for Carmine drum fills." So I figured he's doing a new band or something. So when I called him, I said, "Who's the band?" He said, "Pink Floyd." That was my first question. I said, "Where's Nick?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh, Nick will be there." I said, "Well, why isn't he playing?" He said, "Well, he's been racing his Ferraris and his calluses are sore and, they're soft and everybody just wanted to bring some new blood in for some new energy."
Oh.
I said, "Oh, okay." And then I had Jim Keltner played on the record too.
Yeah.
And so I went in and I played that song, and I'll tell you the truth, I recorded on 3 24-track tapes, which is like 30 minutes each. So I filled up 3 reels of drum parts for that song.
Wow.
And then they put it together. And every time I kept calling Bob Ezrin, I'd say, "Bob, how's it sound?" And he goes, "Well, in the word, daring." I go, "Great. Okay. When can I hear it?" "Well, I'm still working on it." Then I'll call him 2 weeks later. "How's it sound?" Very fantastic, amazing. So basically, I never got to hear it until I was up in Canada doing a movie called Black Roses, which ended up being like a cult heavy metal movie with the guy that plays a big pussy on The Sopranos. He was in it.
Oh, wow.
And then the album came out, and I went downstairs in the mall, and I had my Walkman. And I bought the cassette of the album, and I listened to it in my hotel room before I went on the set. And that's when I heard it, and I said, "Wow, it sounds great." And I said, "Dude, I'm playing with Pink Floyd." I mean, see, Pink Floyd has never been a big deal to me because we used to play shows with Pink Floyd when they were same size as Vanilla Fudge, back in '67. We went to England, we played a bunch of shows with them, and they were just like another band like us,
Yeah.
But they just happened to get big, just like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, right. I'm going to play Rockstar Name Association with Carmine Appice here. I'm going to mention some people that you played with, and you just kind of give us a little background on what it was like in the time, okay?
Okay.
So you played on the Paul Stanley 1978 solo album. Tell us about working with Paul.
Well, me and Paul have been friends since I was playing with Mountain with Leslie West in 1975, replacing Corky Lang for 3 months. And on some of the gigs we did, we opened up to Kiss on their very first big arena tour. And I got to know Paul from then on. And he told me a story that they'd never tell me now, that when they went to see Alice Cooper and Cactus at the Comac Arena, Long Island, that's what gave them the idea for Kiss, him and I think it was him and Gene.
Yeah.
You know, and they said if we can get the energy and the rawness of Cactus with the stage show of Alice Cooper, we'd have some hell of a band.
Yeah.
So, so that's what he told me back then on the first tour. But now I don't think they would say that.
No, Gene Simmons would buy the copyright to the word cactus if you brought that up.
Exactly, yeah. So anyway, but me and Paul became friends. We were friends a long time.
Yeah.
And when I was playing with Rod in like 77, 76, he moved out to L.A. and I needed a manager, so he hooked me up with Bill Aucoin, who was their manager.
Yeah.
And they had a West Coast office, and Bill was managing me, and so I was hanging out with Paul and the Kiss guys, you know, all of them.
Yeah.
All through that time, 76, 77. Then finally in 78, when they were doing those albums, Paul asked me to play on it. I actually played on about 5 songs, but that's the only one that made it for whatever reason. But everybody tells me it's the best song on the album anyway. So, so I'm glad to be associated with that. But I've still yet to get the gold and platinum record for that, to tell you the truth. I never got one. I've been meaning to get, to call Paul and ask him to okay the fact that I can do that, because I never got those. I think that was an important album in my life.
How about your time with Ted Nugent?
Ted was interesting because when I know Ted since the Amboy Dukes days when he used to play opening up for Vanilla Fudge. And, we did lots of tours together. And then my manager, Phil Basile, ended up managing Ted. He's the one that told him to call it Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes. And eventually it just ended up being Ted Nugent. So we had done a TV show together. I think it was January 81. It was the American Music Awards. I did it with Rod, and Ted did it. And Ted saw me playing with Rod, and I think we were doing Passion or Young Turks. I can't remember what song it was. Anyway, at the end of the show, Ted came up to me and said, hey, look, when you're done playing this wimpy rock and you want to play a man's rock, give me a call.
Okay.
So I think it was like at the beginning of 82 or the end of 81 when I was done with the Rod Stewart band. I called Ted. He said, come out to the ranch and to the farm, he called it, and let's talk and see what we can put together.
All right.
So we did it, and we put together an album and a tour for 1982, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. I never worked with him again, and I found out his manager always said that, I was too much like Ted. I was a leader. I got my own record deal to have my own publicity people, managers. He said they needed more of a side man. Interesting.
You did some great work with Pat Travers as well, who's an underrated rocker.
I think he is an underrated rocker. Pat's a great guitar player. Yeah. Great, really great blues rock player who's the nicest guy. Most guitar players have weird attitudes, but he was fine. I mean, he was really a good dude.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed playing with Pat. And the only reason why when we don't do anything anymore is because basically when he does it, he has to we share the revenue together. And the way he's set up bill-wise and everything, he needs to make more money to keep his lifestyle going with his wife and kids and stuff. So he does better playing on his own, even though we draw more people together.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really translate into the actual difference in financing,
Talk about your work on the Private Eyes album with Tommy Bolin, which is one of my favorite records and another one of my favorite artists.
Well, Tommy, I knew Tommy when we broke up BBA. Me and Tim were looking for another guitarist that had the B in his initial, and Tommy Bolin came up, but he wasn't known yet.
Yeah.
The only thing he was known for was Zephyr at the time. We played with Zephyr with Cactus. That's how I knew him. So I had flown to Denver on the way to L.A. in 1975. I was on my way out to look at this band KGB, which had Mike Bloomfield in it. And I stopped off there and I checked out Tommy, and we had a jam at this club called Ebbets Field. And Ebbets Field recorded it live. Somebody released it as an album recently. And Tommy was great, but he didn't really have enough of a name. And he came to L.A. and I remember getting a call from Deep Purple and asking me that they knew I knew him, asking me what kind of guy he was, if I think he'd be good in the band. And I told them, I think he'd be great in the band because he was a great guitarist. So then they took him in, and then he started his solo career, and then he asked me to play on the second album,
Yeah.
Last night I got a text from Eddie Money, and he was saying, man, I just got to tell you played killer on my album. And I remember I played on the album, but I didn't remember this track. So I went on iTunes and I heard the track. I said, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. I didn't remember that. I remember being in the studio with Ron Everson and him and me, and It was at the record plant. I remember the setting, but I don't remember the actual music.
You're a busy guy.
I mean, I'm busy, but, I got to say that, the business has changed so much.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day. It's a
so
totally
much harder
different world.
look at the Grammys. I mean, it's crap. I used to be on that, the Grammy, team that voted for the Grammys. And I don't know, it must have been 10 years ago I got out of it because I didn't know anybody on it. I didn't know any of the groups anymore. I started voting for my friends, anybody that was my friend. I mean, look at, it took Johnny Winter to die to get a Grammy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I hear you.
I mean, he died to get him a Grammy for a blues album. He's been releasing blues albums for years.
Yeah. Well, Carmine Appice, always a pleasure, man. We've been bros for a long time, and it's always a great trip through the world of rock and roll with you. Now, we're going to check out Drum Wars with your brother Vinny, and that's
okay, man.
Check that out. And also the new Vanilla Fudge record, Spirit of 67, where they just go back and pick out some great tunes, as they always did. You guys are always great at taking a song to its essence and then totally recreating it under the Vanilla Fudge filter.
That's a good way to put it. Most people just say you're doing covers. I go, no, we're not doing covers.
No, you're not doing covers. You're resculpting and making.
We're recovering.
Excellent. Great stuff.
We're recovering.
Carmine Appice, always a pleasure, man.
Okay, bro. Thank you, man.